US President Donald Trump has invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit the White House next week, as confirmed by a White House official. This announcement came shortly after a US military plane left to return deported migrants to India. Remember, Trump and Prime Minister Modi had a phone conversation on the 27th of January where they discussed key issues including immigration. Trump emphasized the importance of India purchasing more American-made security equipment and maintaining fair trade relations between the two countries. India, a strategic partner of the US, is countering China, aims to strengthen its trade ties with the US and ease the process for citizens to obtain skilled worker visas. So what really could come out of the meeting between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi next week? Here are 5 items that we have put together that could perhaps be on agenda. Number 1, India could try to thwart the trade tariffs. Remember, Trump has more than once in the recent past mentioned that India has not been the fairest in its trade with the US. US in the interim will try to push for more exports to India. India, on the other hand, will try to protect the trade surplus of more than $30 billion with the US. Number 4 on the agenda could perhaps be return of more undocumented Indians in the US. And finally, number 5, we could perhaps look at further strengthening in terms of technology transfer for the nuclear energy deal with the US. Srinath, these are 5 points that we think could be on agenda. Which of these do you think is the most relevant right now? To my mind, it's going to be trade tariffs and some way to offset the trade tariffs coming India's way.
Yeah, I think, Kartik, the other one is the defense deal, right? The US would want us to buy defense arms and ammunitions. And if India signs up, let's say, ahead of the US summit, if we sign up the treaty with France to buy arms and ammunitions, I think there's going to be more added pressure to offset some of those. The reality is global trade is a zero-sum game. We can't keep purchasing all the time. 2, I think we are also going to find other difficulties which will not be in the formal agenda, but I'm sure the 2 other conversations would be the US indictment of Indian conglomerate and how do we want it to go away, because there are optics involved in this and in economy. And 2 is the Canadian US accusation about an Indian investigative officer. And that's something that I think it's going to be on the off-the-record conversation. But on the record, I think definitely the small nuclear reactors, I think, will be an easy win for both sides, a good one. H-1B, I think, will be a good one for at least the short term. We will need that to win. India, I think, has shown readiness to take back illegal immigrants. And the larger narrative for India is going to be, will India then get up and push back illegal immigrants who have come into its countries? Because end of the day, it's not just a social burden alone, there's an economic rationale there. The third one, I think, very, very important is how do we make this conversation about access to the market? I think some of the large big tech companies in India are going to demand a larger pound of flesh, be it financial services in India and others. And India, if you remember, is got the digital protection bill coming up. How do we push back and stay the course is going to be a real challenge. How do we take on the Metas and the Googles of the world who want bigger access? Amazon is already here, Walmart is already here. All of them are going to want bigger access. And I think that definitely would be on the Trump agenda to push through. The big techs, if you remember, in the entire presidential campaign, they've spoken about deregulation and wanting to grow. And India is one large consumption market. But the challenge really for us is once you open the Pandora's box, you cannot push it back again. Do we really have the political might to push back? I think that's going to be the interesting challenge.
All right. I just want to bring your attention to tariffs for just a minute longer, Srinath. Now, the theory really out there is that US's only concern is China and whatever it's trying to do with Canada and Mexico, and the pullback that we've seen from that is primarily just to have a cleaner slate, saying that, hey, we are not going singularly after China. But that's the conspiracy theory, that it is actually going after China, and all other tariff decisions which also get rolled back are just to make sure that that the only country that gets hampered in the tariff war is China. Do you agree with that school of thought, or is that a little too far-fetched?
I think I would add on to that. I don't agree with it fully, because I think the larger elephant in the room is Russia. Despite the so-called US sanctions against Russia, Russia has been standing tall. I mean, I'm not taking any sides on this entire narrative about Russia, Ukraine, others. But the reality is, US is going to push India's buttons on India importing oil from Russia. And
Right.
if you remember, Saudi, the US has already reached out to Saudi, and Saudi is pumping in $500 billion of money in the AI ecosystem. So, and this is a president who does not believe in climate change, who believes in fossil fuel and all of those. So I think it is also the US is pushing Russia's buttons and whatever can hurt it back. I mean, China and Russia have been getting closer. So can it hurt Russia through China? Can it push India to kind of step back away from Russia? I think some of those narratives. Look at Russia. Don't forget that the closest missile, even during the Cold War, from the Russian border to the American border was less than 4 hours
Right.
of that's it. So I think that Cold War still continues, but I think the narrative now, the newest Cold War, I think, is the AI war with China. But I hope that India has a relevant seat and not have these conversations where we have to, I mean, literally, so to speak, if I were to use the American justice system, you have kind of indicted a guy called Sam Altman in the court of law for media violations, IPR violations, and the same minister who's also in charge of media as well as IT. We are wooing him publicly, talking about, hey, we want to open the access to you. So I think it is something more than just Sam Altman.